Thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Frandelle Gerard, and I head up a little organization called CHANT, and we are a member of a nonprofit consortium that was founded by the St. Croix Foundation for Community Development, and Shamari is going to talk about that more. I'm going to talk a little bit about CHANT and what we do and who we are. So, and I wrote it down even though I don't usually read written speeches. In 2016, we wrote a proposal to a New York-based organization called Art Place America. And our opening statement was, caught between the legacy of environmental devastation by hurricanes, and we were referring to, at that point, Hurricane Hugo in 1989, and industries. St. Croix happened to have had the third largest oil refinery in the Western Hemisphere for 50 years. And economic disinvestment. The island of St. Croix, specifically the western end and the town of Frederiksted, has struggled to chart positive economic pathways for residents. Then we were hit by two Category 5 hurricanes in 2017, 6 months after we started, we, by the way, got the grant, we started the grant work. And in 2021, we were hit by devastating chemical, explosions. It rained oil on the western side of the island, 7 miles away from a malfunctioning oil refinery. Throughout all of this, CHANT, which is a small nonprofit organization that was founded to promote sustainable tourism, had to ramp up and get our tour guides going because in 2017, after the hurricane, cruise ships could get into our port, but they couldn't get into St. Martin or St. Thomas, the largest ports. So in October, we were asked to guide people on tours. And we said, no, there's no phone, there's no water, there's no power. By December, we had trained over 20 new guides, and we took out over 4,000 people between December of 2017 and March of 2018. Still no power. Our original program was Invisible Heritage Identity Memory in Our Town, which is targeting Frederiksted Historic Freegut restoration. Freegut refers to a waterway, and the free refers to probably one of the oldest continuously occupied free Black communities under the American flag. Those properties, not those exact buildings, but the properties they sit on, were owned and occupied by free Blacks in 1777, and they are still owned by Blacks. But we had to regroup, and we worked with the cruise line, and we got our people that were in our training program out cleaning up and deploying all of the donations that we got from the cruise lines, and by visiting disaster recovery people, because the town of Frederiksted had no place to get water, had no place to get food. And our elders were being asked to walk almost 2 miles to the FEMA area to get bottled water. So we did it. The other thing that we did was we continued training. And we've had over 25 young people come through our training program, mostly young people that are considered high risk, that are certainly outside of the parameters of what most employers are looking for. Young men, primarily, between the ages of 18 and 30. And of the 25 young men that we've trained, and one woman, all but one are gainfully employed. Average income now, this group here at the bottom, they're our last group of trainees, they're all making between $18 to $23 an hour, fresh out of a 10-day training program, because of their capacity and skill set. But the other thing that we did in 2017, 18, 19, and 20, is we had this Freegut summer program for young people in our town. It took us 3 years before the people in the town would bring their children to the program. But the person standing at the top in the white shirt, her name is Monique Mo George, is a well-known community organizer. We began training the youth in community organizing. We then also trained civic organizations and faith-based organizations in community organizing. In 2018, our youth led a walkout at our public school because they were in a mold-filled environment. And now in 2021 and 2022, those of us who've been doing community organizing are now leading the environmental advocacy for our community in response to these chemical problems with an oil refinery that is now closed. EPA did come in, they shut it down. And EPA is now working with us. How strange for a community to say that their best partner is the EPA. But it is. And we are now one of the top EJ communities in the United States. We've just begun partnering with, we partner a lot. That's why this works. We had Art Place America. We partnered with locally St. Croix Foundation, St. Croix Environmental Association, VI Good Food Coalition, Sierra Club, the Nature Conservancy, NRDC. By advocating, we now have the CDC finally standing up to respond to a 1.5-year-old request for them to take a look at what we inhaled. And when I say we, I was one of those people sitting in a meeting when something hit us. We don't know what the components of the gas were. We just know that we coughed, that children had projectile vomiting, that people were passing out in their schools, and there were no air monitors deployed. And we do this with no funding. So Chant has technically 1.5 full-time people, but we only get paid part-time. St. Croix Environmental has 2 full-time and 1 part-time. St. Croix Foundation is the biggest, and I think 6 full-time, maybe?
Yes.
6 full-time. And VI Good Food Coalition has 1.75 full-time. And we can get funding all day long for programs. We just can't get funding for sustaining our operations. And we're a territory. We're not US for most philanthropists in the United States. And we're not international either. We're this little colony that sits somewhere that has great difficulty attracting major national philanthropists to invest. But we make it happen. When C got a small grant, they divided it between all of the organizations for the environmental work. When the St. Croix Foundation was able to get some funding, they divided it up between all of us. Everybody, when I get money for training, then we can train their people. The Nature Conservancy has stepped up in an interesting way in partnering to promote the workforce development in the historic space. Now, one thing I don't want to close without saying what we're doing with those buildings. They're all owned by Black families. They're owned by Black families who are descendants of enslaved people. They can't access funds, but we can as a nonprofit. So we're working to build the trust. We now have 2 families out of the 6 that have agreed to lease us the properties so that we can get the money to fix the buildings and put them back into habitation. We've just received $150,000 for the third building down, the little yellow one with no porch. And we anticipate that we'll be starting that restoration project late this spring and training another cadre of 10 to 20 young people to actually work on fixing those buildings. We invite you to come to St. Croix. It is paradise for some, but the reality for the people born and raised there and who live there is it's a tough road. We are on St. Croix and the town of Frederiksted, the most disinvested group of people. We have very little access to capital, and we have about a 40, is it 40 this time? 47% child poverty rate in the town of Frederiksted. So it looks beautiful. It's great to live there. COVID, we could still go outside. But 2 Category 5s, an oil refinery spewing oil, really challenges the resilience of a community. And what keeps us going are our partnerships and our collaboration and our faith in knowing that developing from within is really the only sustainable way going forward. Thank you.